Good afternoon, everybody. Joining us from probably mostly South Africa, but I know we've got some global guys in the room as well. So as far as field as Alex was going to join, although I think it's the middle of the night for him in the US. Our Australian counterparts and New Zealand counterparts very kindly declined as a hideous time for them to be joining at this. So we'll have a smattering of Europe and but mostly South Africa today, as this is a 40-week South Africa hosted webinar. So I'm so excited to be speaking to you. It's been a long time since I've had everyone in the room together. Can you believe we are a whole year on after our first 40-week South Africa pilot? So those 28 brave companies that started this journey with us almost 2 years ago, actually, have completed a full year of their 4-day week. And Juliet from Boston College and her team have been busy researching, and it looks like around 90% of the companies that started have kept it a year later, which is really, really exciting to be hearing. And we're continuing to see improvements in well-being, drop in burnout rates, better sort of levels of employee engagement and talent retention. So all of those wonderful things that we know 4-day week delivers globally and indeed in South Africa, although we were never sure when we started this. South Africa never quite toes the line in terms of some of the experiments we do, but indeed our pioneer participants really did flourish. So I think the objective for me today really is to not speak as I usually do, but to give the stage over to some truly inspirational speakers. I've had the privilege of working with Tamsin for 2 years now in the 40-week environment, as well as through Human Energy. Ali and I have spent many hours in many meetings together discussing 40-week Global, the new accreditation program that's coming, and Ali's new and incredible system that is able to measure employee flourishing. I managed to grab a copy of this wonderful book at Heathrow Airport from our esteemed author in the room, Ryan Hopkins. And Alex will be joining us shortly from the UK. Also had the privilege of working with her in the 40-week environment around digital habits and well-being in the space. So a lineup second to none. And really here today to speak about how do we get businesses and organizations and employees in those organizations to flourish in time. So what is the science of productivity and the science of performance, and what comes first? How do we measure it? How do we start looking at building a business case for reduced hours working rather than just speaking about the 4-day week and the 180-100? So this really is a maturing of a conversation that the world has been having around an unsustainable way of working. We know that it's unsustainable. We keep reading reports, whether it's from Gallup, Mercer, Cushman and Wakefield, all of the big five are telling us our workforces are not performing, they're not flourishing. We've got retention issues, we've got absenteeism issues. And I think the whole world of work has changed fundamentally. And COVID is a long time ago now. We're in 2024. Things have changed and they continue to change. And I'm still seeing organizations wanting to go back to the way they were doing things before. So this webinar is not about trying to convince you to do the 4-day week. In fact, the opposite is true. I want you guys to all question what your employees' current space is, what shape is your organization is, how well are they doing? What are the well-being levels looking like? What are your retention, engagement, culture, and all of these wonderful metrics that we should be measuring? And ask yourselves, are they flourishing? And if they're not, what can be done to improve the flourishing score? And we're going to be going through and weaving a narrative throughout this webinar as we go through it. So a year on, I call it my game of risk within the 40-week Global team. So in my capacity as CEO of 40-week South Africa, I was also approached by 40-week Global, given the success in the South African territory, to expand the global territory and start looking for country partners. So a year on, actually last week, a year on, we had 4 partners when we started, and we now have 23 country partners sitting across the globe, with more to come. So an explosive growth and representation around the world, and very proud that we've got a second South African working in the global team already. And really, it's just been an honor and privilege to work with like-minded organizations and individuals around the world that are so passionate about a better, more sustainable and flourishing future of work. I had to put the brag slide in, but 40 Week Global definitely has been picking up a lot of attention and recognition for the work that they're doing within this space, from Fast Company to Time 100 last year. And our very young CEO, I hope he's not listening and hearing very young, but he's very young compared to me, has recently been recognized in Time's most influential people in health, and was recognized as Forbes 30 under 30. So I'll be applying for Forbes 60 under 60 soon. But you know, and that'll knock a bit of wind out of Dale's sails, but really getting some acknowledgement and recognition for the work that we're doing globally as well as in South Africa. So the research says it works. Does the science back it? And this is where we're going. So we know that we're seeing, these are collected or collated data results from Boston College across the 5 national programs that have already been run. This excludes all of Europe that has come online this year, but we're seeing 40% improvements in productivity, revenue positive environments, 65% reduction in sick leave taken. 2/3 of employees are reporting that feeling of feeling less burnt out, 1/3 reporting decreases in work stress, and 57% reductions in employee attrition. So these are all business metrics. They're all reported benefits, and we've got report after report after report. Brazil's midway mark has just landed. The results are the same in another developing country, not similar to South Africa, but certainly not a United Kingdom or a European country that seems to be more progressive in their way of working. Portugal's results are about to be released, their full term results. Germany's almost halfway through their trial, experiencing all of this that you see in front of you. These stats are consistent no matter the territory or country. We've also developed a new client roadmap, and I'm going to circle back to this later. But I want you all to think of a client journey. If you are considering a 4-day week, or you have considered a 4-day week, this is all going to hopefully crystallize in your mind in terms of the journey that we want to take you through. So first and foremost, it's a change management program. Preparation is key. So from a global and a South African perspective, we've got 2 routes to get you ready to transition to a 4-day week. One is the bespoke consulting environment, which really is for larger organizations, over 500, where you've got more complex and contrasting business functions, or you can join a national program route. And South Africa is running another cohort aligned to all of the European trials, and that will be in November, end of October, November this year. Then we move into the design phase, and this is all fit for purpose, fit for business. No two businesses are alike. And no work time reduction journey or time efficiency journey or flourishing in time journey is going to be the same for every organization. So we work with you to design your work week, or remaster it. Then we move into mastering time transformation. And this is where we coach organizations to really measure what matters, using the science and the diagnostics to back you up. Master it. It's an iterative process. You're not going to get it right straight off the back. And lastly, the goal is to become accredited and to be able to send get a stamp of approval and send that message out to the world and to the talent that you're looking to recruit, and to the staff that work for you, that you are a great place to work, that you are a flourishing work environment. So we'll circle back to this, and let's intro our amazing speakers so I can get off the screen. I'm going to introduce you all up front. So first up is going to be Ryan Hopkins. As I said to you before, I grabbed this book in Heathrow. It is an incredible read. We're waiting for him to agree to a trip out to South Africa. Sorry, Ryan, I just had to put you on the spot there. 52 weeks of well-being, a no-nonsense guide to a fulfilling work life. If ever I've read a book that gave me the most practical, engaging, wonderful tips that I as an individual can implement right now, this is the book. So please, I know it's available on Amazon. I'm really hoping it'll come into the South African bookshelves soon. But when Ryan launched, it rocketed straight to the top of the best-selling list. So we have a best-selling author in our room. He is also Chief Impact Officer at Jack, doing some amazing things, and formerly Future of Wellbeing Leader at Deloitte. Are you going to step in there, Ryan? Got a comment?
How do I continue after that? As I said, I just need you to, I need to bring you around, right?
I was just busy catching up.
I love it. I think Percy loves it as well. I think that's why you're off mute, fella. But Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Excited to get into it.
I'll
It will
check it
be
now.
intentionally challenging today. So this is not an affront. If we don't challenge or question things, we're not going to get any better, are we? So
Yes, yes.
please join in the debate. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. I welcome it, and let's get into it. Well,
Very
am I
nice.
starting now, or are you introducing everyone quickly?
No, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to bring up when Alex comes in and on camera. So it's
Yeah.
over to you, Ryan. Let's go.
She's here. I can see her.
I am
Oh,
here.
there you are. Hello, Alex. Oh, you're under Mike Thompson.
Because I've just been delivering a session on someone else's Zoom account, so it looks like I'm still logged in. So I'm not Mike Thompson. I am indeed Alex.
All right, let me
Fleming.
just bring that slide up quickly before you start then, Ryan, and then that's best, and then we can just flow through. So next up, with an alias, is Alex Levere from Live More Offline.
Also
Alex's
known as Mike
credentials.
Thompson.
I beg your pardon?
Also known as Mike Thompson.
Leave your
Oh,
vacuum
yes, you two
cleaner,
know
come
each
back a bit
other.
later,
In
please.
fact, Ali, Alex, and Ryan have an inner circle, and we're
Thanks,
still trying to
Poppy. You can
figure
leave it
out
here.
all of the gems and the secrets here. But Alex and I have had many conversations about a topic of digital well-being and well-being. She's an official partner of 40 Week Global. And I think, you know, Alex, your personal story is also, you know, incredible. This sort of always on culture, and with your successful career as a Big Four accountant and head of tax, you know, going on your 500 miles on the Camino Trail in Spain, and just really reconnecting with your purpose too. You know, find healthier ways of working and challenging our digital habits and digital environments. But Alex takes a very scientific approach to this and runs a lot of digital wellbeing consultancy programs, and she'll be telling you a little bit more about that later. So Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Ali Khan, one of my favorite people to spend time with. I learn something new every time I'm in the room with him. We've had a privilege of walking a path for the last couple of months as CEO of Shape Global. Just an incredible diagnostic system that Ali has spent, I'm not too sure, years developing maybe, but just an astonishing you know, if you think employee surveys are employee surveys, you need to think again. But Ali's got credentials in the health industry and the well-being industry going back 25 years across multiple industries. A real data and tech enthusiast. Ali, what's you always call yourself something. You always say your team calls you.
You don't want to hear this. They're calling me all sorts of names right
No,
now.
no, but it's like it's like
Overworked.
you're an engineer. There's a term that they use to describe you.
Oh, I think one day somebody might call me a polymath. That'd be a nice one.
All right, well, Ali's going to bring a wealth of insight into diagnostics and the science and how we can move towards time transformation and time efficiency and you know, what is that link with time and performance. And our last speaker is a business partner, Tamsin Haley. She is also an author. I've also got her book, Don't Be a Twat Waffle. I hope I've said that right, Tam. Tamsin is CEO and founder of Social Happiness. Tamsin and I met 2 years ago when she put her hand up to do 40 Week South Africa's social media work pro bono through Social Happiness. She also owns a publishing company called Angel Rock Productions. She's an author of Don't Be a Twat Waffle, and she's also co-founder of Human Energy and has been intimately involved in 40 Week South Africa's journey since we started. So power lineup, and I get to stop talking now, and I'm going to hand straight over to Ryan.
Cool. I haven't got any slides, everyone, because I think it's quite nice not to sometimes. So feel free to pop stuff on the chat and we can have a dialogue as we go. I get to see some of your lovely faces, so that's even better. So we're going to start talking about, so I've started something called the Workplace Rebellion in the UK. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a discussion around why what we're doing isn't working, where we currently find ourselves, what has driven that place, what we're doing to fix it, and then what we could potentially consider so we can actually move forward. Because for all the amazing efforts of the people in this room and great initiatives and the work that Dr. Dale is doing, the 4-day work week, we are moving backwards in most places. And it's not for lack of effort. There is a record spend on workplace wellbeing at the moment. Anyone want to guess what the global spend on workplace wellbeing is? Whack it in the chat. People thinking. I can hear the cogs turning. Not enough for Bill. Not enough. All right, so times that by 10 is 40 billion currently. That's what's spent on workplace wellbeing at the moment. And by 2030, it'll be 70. So it isn't for lack of trying. And people, CEOs, the vast majority think that things have got better over the past year. In fact, 75% of execs think that wellbeing has stayed the same, if not improved. And if I was spending that much money, I would too, right? However, employees think the exact opposite. So 75% think that things have got worse, if not remain the same. So there's an absolute disconnect. This has left us in a place where, according to Gallup, 3 billion people are miserable at work. Now, it's difficult to get your head around that, isn't it? That number of people. If you think of the global workforce population, 23% of the workforce is engaged at work. The rest are either quiet quitting or actively disengaged, sabotaging efforts. The UK, I'll use the UK for data here, but we were having a discussion around the challenges in South Africa, and they are unique, and if not even more challenging. So we can assume that together. So the UK was ranked recently as the second most miserable nation on earth, according to Sapient Labs. What a terrible statistic. We're only Uzbekistan scoring worse. I don't know that much about Uzbekistan, but that doesn't put the UK in a great place, does it? And we're seeing change in legislation in the US. We're seeing TikTok being proposed to be taken off of China and be made a US entity, or we're getting rid of it. We got coffee badging. We heard of that? People come into the office now, there's an office mandate, they're being forced back in. They tap their badge, they walk around the office loudly, they say hello to everyone. Hello, hello, hello. How's your father? How's your missus? And then they bugger off again, right? That's where we found ourselves with coffee trending, coffee badging, quiet quitting. And today, the CEO of Man United, I've got someone who's coffee badging at the moment. We've got the CEO of Man United has ordered everyone back into the office because he found that email traffic was lower on a Friday. So somehow he's confused the fact that emails are work when they are not. We don't get paid to send emails. Unless you do, then I'll shut up and get back in my box. So we're seeing change in legislation, more miserable people than ever, and we're spending more than ever. And execs think that everything is getting better and everything's a rosy. However, employees think the direct opposite. But what has led us to this position, right? So 82% of managers are accidental, apparently. They slipped into a management position. Oopsie daisy, I'm a manager. I was a strong individual contributor, and now I'm leading a team that is more demanding than ever and struggling more than ever. 1 in 3 young people experiencing symptoms of anxiety, depression, compared to 1 in 4 in broader population. That is the team these managers are inheriting with little to no training. And is it any wonder why they are struggling to look after a team like that? And 15% of us are neurodiverse, myself being one of them. I have ADHD, dyslexia, and dyspraxia, and I timed them all together. The likelihood of me having all of them is 1 in 5,000. That makes me pretty special. At least I like to think so anyway. And then there's digital overwhelm, but I won't long this point because Alex is going to do that for you. We spend 13 hours a day on screens. We check our phone 350 times a day. We check our email 80 times a day. We receive over 75 notifications, and it takes 25 minutes to get into a place where we can focus. So you are wondering why you are so stressed out? I think I know why. And if it's not your boss emailing you, it's probably your Tinder going off in the evening. But there's rarely a time in my day that I'm not connected to a screen. And last night, Ali's laughing, he's probably the same. I was watching TV, I've got my laptop on my lap and I've got my phone in my hand. I'm triple screening. I am the problem. It's me. But we do this, and how else do we connect with people? This is where we find ourselves. The real cost of essentials in the UK has risen by 20% year on year, so financial pressures are real, and this has been experienced around the world with high inflation. And where do people go to get their mental health information? Considering all of this, the record spend, what is the #1 resource globally for mental health information? Does anyone want to guess? Tamsin, you cheated. I told you this the other day. All right? You ruined it for everyone. Okay, yes, it is TikTok. There were 120 billion views on the hashtag mental health. Right? That's 120 billion people seeking mental health information from TikTok and people like the Liver King. Right? 84% of that information is factually incorrect. There's a meta study recently. And 12% would be damaging if you were to implement for yourself. So we live on screens, we access our information through TikTok, and we're being managed in the workplace with people that have little to no time or training. So that's why we think things are going better. We're spending more money than ever, but this is the position in which we find ourselves. There are almost 500,000 health apps on the App Store. And when they're launched first, there's a big furore, there's some big excitement. 27% of the business sign up to use it. 6 months later, less than 8% of the business is still engaging, and the drop-off is highest for those with the least amount of time and least amount of salary. So the people that are going to do these things anyway are going to do them outside of work. Well-being is not often about more, it's about less. It's about saying no, it's about creating space. We know inherently what we need to do. We just need a gap in between meetings to do so. And that's what Oxford found recently, that most well-being interventions in the workplace don't actually work. Big buzzy headline that was bandied around in the UK. For me, that lacks some nuance and understanding of the environment. They absolutely can if you have the space, time, flexibility, and autonomy to do so. They found that volunteering was by far and away the best thing that you can do in the workplace. What that says to me is not that volunteering is best. It says that someone with a sense of purpose, with more free time, who doesn't have to worry about working a second job, is able to focus on themselves and do something for someone else. And the research missed all of that. It provides some really interesting thought, though, doesn't it? That interventions and solutions aren't often the solution. And that well-being is no small thing, but it's made up of small things. It's the little things we do regularly. Does anyone want to tell me, does anyone know what the definition of well-being actually is? Here's a question. We talk about it all the time. Does anyone know? You can come off mute.
Is it the absence of ill health?
Yeah, that's like one of the opposite of ill-being, which is the term that isn't used. But even more simple, that's more of a health aspect of it. So the definition of well-being is one's satisfaction with their life. And that incorporates so much more than mental and physical, but your relationships, but how you work, the time you have, your sense of purpose, everything comes into it, your finances, and it's so much broader. So it's really interesting. There's a study from Indeed, the biggest well-being study ever performed. 18 million plus individuals took part in this study. And they asked everyone, what's going to create a better sense of well-being? What's most important for you? And everyone's like, show me the wedge. And you expect to hear this, right? And for people in lower salary bands, that's the greatest thing you could do. They don't need another app. They potentially need another pound or a few rand an hour, right? See? You know what I mean? So that's what they need. That's what we can do for these people. However, what we found was that number one was being energized by your work. Do you remember the last time you finished the workday more energized than when you started? They're few and far between, aren't they? I can see a shake of your head. So hopefully today will be a better one for you, I promise. So second was trust, feeling like you're able to work in a way that suits you. Me, say as a working parent, I'm able to pick my kids up. I'm able to work in a way that suits me because I'm trusted by my manager who's had training to work and deliver as a smart human and not get measured on the amount of emails I send and get called back into the office like at Manchester United. I wonder if that's going to help them and Bruno Fernandes. I seriously doubt it. And then last is belonging, feeling like you belong regardless of your demographic, regardless of where you come from, what you've been through, anything, any of those demographics, that you come exactly as you are. And when you consider those things, that's not what you traditionally think of as well-being, is it? Belonging, trust, and energy. And do you think apps or solutions provide these sorts of results? Potentially not. And it's going to take a different change or way of thinking. So the way that we end up in this position is because 1 to 2% of companies in the UK use any form of organizational data, such as attrition, absenteeism, to measure the effectiveness of their efforts. So what they're essentially doing is working off of assumptions and surveys that age. I know someone here can take survey to another level, so I'm not going to bash surveys, and they are very helpful and done right. I know that, and you're going to get into it. But these surveys are qualitative. They don't pick up on certain things. They age. They take 3 months to be processed, to be agreed, and then they work out a slow what they're willing to discuss and what they're not willing to discuss in the frame of broader restructuring of the business, and then it's pointless. So to take it further, we need to treat well-being like a science, like a cross-functional discipline, to get that data down, to understand the implications from the work week on the attrition. I did this with fintech before and found out that every 30 minutes increase resulted in an increase in voluntary attrition. And I took that back to the leader and I said, yes, the case. She was like, well, we're a sales organization, tough shit, essentially. This is how we work here. I said, well, increased hours don't result in increased productivities. Then I mapped the hours against the sales targets in each of the regions to show her how it didn't result in improved performance, actually was detrimental and costing the business X amount. That's how you treat this like a science, and you earn the respect and the opportunity and the scope of the leadership to make the change, because well-being isn't about apps and solutions. It's about cross-functional teams coming together to create space for an individual to work in a way that suits them, flexibly, with a sense of energy, like they belong, and with some trust. And we've overcomplicated what is incredibly simple. We just need the opportunities to do our work and switch off outside of that. BT did a really cool study with Oxford, and they found that a 1-point increase in subjective happiness for call center staff resulted in a 13% increase in sales, starting to show that people, when they turn up and they're happy and they're supported, actually produce more for the business. We know this intrinsically, but it's really interesting to see the data. Or is it that people who sell more are more happy? I don't know, because if I'm coming home with a bigger bonus check, I'm happier as well. But is it important? No. Happier people sell more, right? Happier people do better. So Bupa, I do a lot of work with Bupa with the work I do with Jack, which is the world's coolest mental health platform, in my opinion. If you haven't seen it, look at jack.org. Check it out. It's free for the world. The biggest two challenges, according to Bupa, from workplace well-being are engagement and managers. You can have the world's best solution, but if no one uses it, it's absolutely pointless. And given that the average attention span, according to Microsoft, is 8.25 seconds, but people say that's a bit low. Gloria Mark, who leads the attention span work from the University of California, said 47. Regardless, between 8 and 47 isn't long, is it, when you're checking your phone 350 times a day? Right? So this is why engagement is the key challenge, to get people to engage earlier. Bupa have found that insurance premiums are going up year on year because people are engaging later with health services, with cancer, with mental health pathways, and everything else. So engagement is the key, to meet people exactly where they are in the moment that they need it. And secondly, managers. They get an absolute bashing on socials, don't they? You wouldn't want to be a manager. Managers are more detrimental to your well-being than your spouse and or doctor. Okay, sure. But it isn't because they want to be more detrimental. It's because they're not supported or enabled to support an ever-demanding team. 96% of managers feel they have the responsibility for the well-being of the people in their team. I'm not sure what the 4% are doing. You always have some outliers, right? But 96% agree. But 70% of those managers say they're unable to, due to heavy workload, rigid company policies, unsupportive culture, which then speaks to what we're trying to do with the 4-day work week and that flexibility piece to enable people and managers, more importantly, to support an ever-demanding team that are increasingly neurodiverse, or at least diagnosed as such, are struggling more with anxiety or depression. So to manage and support a Gen Z workforce that's coming in with more issues than ever into the workplace, regardless of your opinion on that, we need to create the space and give them the opportunity to look after them. So it's about meeting people with the well-being solutions in the right format. We have to look across the employee life cycle and think, what are the moments that people go through? How do we meet them in the right context with that right information? We did this with Jack when we launched with Workday Insight for their business. And we looked across all these key moments like bereavement processes, and we inserted conversational content in those moments to meet people exactly where they are. And we got over a quarter of the business using the platform in the first day, and the usage has continued because we meet people in that moment. If you have a solution that's over here, people are not going to engage because, as we said, they've got between 8 and 47 seconds for you to capture them. And if they don't, the likelihood is they've received another email and they're off doing something else. I actually have to run after this and jump on another call. So I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world. But if you get an opportunity to consider this differently in the workplace perspective, we can think potentially more isn't always more from this. And the things that we need to consider: engagement, unlocking the managers to support a demanding team, and measurement. If we treat well-being like a science and consider it as an outcome of the work that we're trying to do, a cross-functional effort working with IT functions, marketing, and everyone else, we'll find that we create a workplace that's inclusive, with a sense of belonging, where we're trusted to do work in a way that suits us, and potentially we finish the workday with more energy than when we started. These take novel and innovative solutions, little things. A great example is, hear the alarm, classic. Soon I'm getting to the end of my session. Apologies for the background. It's London soundscape. If you've got 6 meetings per day and you cut each one by 5-10 minutes, you'll save 4.8 work weeks worth of effort this year. These are the solutions that are going to have the biggest impact on the business. Wellbeing is no small thing, but it's made up of small things. Another example, which if you shake your knee all day, just keep rocking your knee today for 8 hours, you'll burn 290 calories, which is essentially, 300, which is enough for a McDonald's cheeseburger with 10 calories spare. So it's all about balance. It's all about those little things. It's all about considering this differently. It's all about experimenting, measuring, and treating well-being like a discipline and a science with the respect it deserves. And when you get that data right, you can show the leadership, this is why this is a priority. This is what we're doing to address it in an experimentational fashion. And I promise you, you'll earn the right and the opportunity to do the amazing things like Alex is doing, the 4-day work week and everything else that will actually shift the perception in this space. But we have to think about it differently. We have to talk about it differently, and we have to tackle this differently. Hopefully that was interesting and spurred some thought. I try and avoid solutions because what works for your business won't work for someone else's, right? So what we need to do is understand the people we're trying to serve, their challenges, where we can meet them, bite-sized fashion, and then we'll start to make the change. I don't know how I got on for time. I think that was okay. We've got a minute. We've got a question or anything? Yeah, if you're shaking honestly, shake the knee all day, go smash a cheeseburger, you're golden. This will be the only well-being talk you've ever been to where I'm recommending a cheeseburger, although you didn't hear that from me. Right?
Oh, Ryan, thank you so much. I know you have to jump off, so I'm just going to open the floor. Are there any specific questions for Ryan? We didn't have enough time to do justice to all the incredible work you're doing, Jack, but I think from my side, for me, the main takeout here was treat well-being as a discipline and a science, and really being able to meet your employees where they are at that particular moment and engage earlier in the well-being process. But I do want to ask you a question, Ryan, from my side. In your book, you said it is not an employer's responsibility to improve staff happiness at work.
No, because when we focus on that, we try and fix people and give them solutions that work for me. I like cold plunges and running ultra marathons. If I said that's the solution, I bring that to the office and start forcing you to do that. How happy is that going to make you? The people in the well-being positions and those of power, they want to help. I've never met someone, a mental health first aid or anyone else that doesn't want to support. But they come with their lived experience and try and fix someone else with what they've been through. The biggest thing an organization can do, there's two sides of it, the deal of dual accountability. Here at Organization A, at Ryan Incorporated, terrible management, I wouldn't work there. We work flexibly. We come together now and again because essentially we're hairless apes and we need a bit of connection, but we work out what that is, the perfect balance, answering the hybrid paradox. We trust you to work in a way that suits you. We make sure that we try not to bleed into your evenings so you can live a life outside of work and focus on the little things that make you happy every day. The rest of it, we'll provide these solutions, but that's down to you. You can take the horse to well-being water, but you can't make it drink. So that's the difference. Then when people can turn up and own their own journey, whatever that path looks like for them, what Ali wants to do is different to Tamsin, is different to Tracy. We all got different things, right? A business just creates the space. Then we can support people with community support. And then ultimately, some people will struggle. Then we have to have the reactive support, supporting them in those moments as well. If we think about this differently, what would you rather? Another webinar as good as this is, or a gap in between all your meetings today? So well-being is no thing, but it's made up of small things, and it's often about less. So for me, that's the shift change. And strategies inside businesses, they go mental, physical, emotional, social. That's a person. That isn't an organization. That's one side of the deal. The other side is creating the space for individuals to do what they want. This is why apps are underutilized. This is why interventions can worsen subjective well-being. It's just one more thing you don't have time for. So create the space and then let smart people do what they need.
Ryan, thank you so much. Are there any other questions from the floor? Not at this stage. If you do want to connect with Ryan, we've popped his LinkedIn handle in the chat. Ryan, we'll be having you on again soon, and we got the privilege of recording a podcast with you last week, so we'll soon be putting that out into the world. But we look forward to connecting again soon. I hope you can stay on for a little while longer. But thank you so much for joining us today, and you've made me want a cheeseburger. That's now the only takeout I have from the conversation. It's like cheeseburger. All right, Ryan, thank you so much. I'm going to just, a marvelous presentation. I'm just going to quickly share my screen because I do have to intro you properly, Alex. So our next speaker is Alessandra Levia, or Alex, as I like to affectionately call her, from Live More Offline. I did do the intro and sort of credentials in the beginning, but a remarkable woman with an incredible amount of information and advice to give us as business owners, business leaders, and indeed in employees on how to manage our digital well-being and live a more purposeful, more offline world of work. So Alex, I'm going to make you host now so that you can share your screen. So give me one sec. You are now host. There we go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And it is such a pleasure to be here. And I mean, the incredible work that the 4-Day Week Global team are doing, I mean, it's really changing lives, changing the world of work. And so I'm really proud to be working with them, in particular around digital habits. So that's my area of expertise, is looking at our behaviors and our beliefs in digital work. How they can
put it in a bowl and it put some preserve. Or do you want to eat it? Is that what you're saying?
Alex, just hang on a sec for me. I just need to see who is needing to mute.
I've done it. It's okay. So there we go. So actually that is a brilliant example of one of the challenges that we have in our digital environment. So multitasking is a myth, yet we spend so much of our day with emails and messages coming at us whilst we're trying to be able to get the very work done that we need to get done. How many of you have a pop-up on the bottom right of your screen every time that you receive a new email? If so, if that's enabled, just that one small change is actually going to make a huge difference to how much you're able to focus. As Ryan said, Gloria Mark's research shows it takes us 23 minutes to get back to the same task with the same level of focus if we're interrupted partway through. So what I'm all about is taking our digital habits and then making those changes to harness well-being and productivity. And I've worked with companies specifically around doing this to ease the transition into a 4-day work week. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why this is important, and then show you an example of how we've put this into practice, and therefore what you could do in order to actually make a difference alongside a transition to a 4-day week. So why is this important? Well, if you've experienced video call fatigue, you're not alone. Did you know that 1/3 of all meetings are actually unnecessary? So there is a lot of time here that we can claim back. As we said, distractions are eroding productivity. So within our workplaces, if we reduce the number of channels of communication, the number of emails, we can again claim that time back. And for many people, our boundaries have blurred and working days have lengthened. In fact, when we look at what happened post-pandemic, there was an increase in the number of chat messages, the number of meetings, and the workday length. But what happened then over the following couple of years is that those trends continued to increase. What we haven't done as a society, now that hybrid work is normal, is find a way of working that is balanced and that is sustainable. And that's what we need to do, because hybrid work is not going anywhere. So therefore, what I am passionate about is looking with businesses at the link between our digital habits and business KPIs like well-being, productivity, retention, and inclusion, because it can be really hard to get sign-off to actually make a difference in this area without, as Ryan says, data, and turning this into a science. So that is what I help workplaces to do, is making that link between our digital behaviors and these KPIs. As Karen mentioned, I got into this having worked in a corporate environment. So I was originally a Big Four tax accountant and worked within multinational organizations before experiencing burnout myself from digital habits. I spent 34 days walking 500 miles on the Camino de Santiago. And it was on that walk in Spain that I really started to connect with how different I felt being in nature with a better balance with technology, how much more clearly my brain could think. And I started to be curious about the impact that technology was having on my well-being and on well-being in society. Started doing research with the University of Aberdeen, looking at the impact of technology on well-being. And then over the last 5 years, I've worked with some of the world's largest organizations and also with charities and universities to measure digital habits and to put in place workshops and training to be able to make changes as well. And we've recently launched our digital learning modules too. So we've got a whole suite of tools that we can employ to be able to help. So why do we actually need to do this? Well, maybe you've had this experience where kind of you've looked at someone's status and seen that it's amber and started to question whether or not they're working. Or maybe you've heard somebody else comment on someone's amber status and whether or not they're working. Well, why does that matter? It actually has a significant impact. If we are measuring people's contribution based on amber lights on Teams, based on whether they're sending emails late at night, or based on whether they are replying quickly to emails, what happens is that people feel that they have to be constantly connected. They have to be replying quickly to messages when they come in. And that then means that they move to distracted working, and they move as well to not being able to disconnect. But the challenge is that this impacts different demographics differently as well. Because if you look, your typically underrepresented demographics like women will be more likely to be working digitally and are going to be disproportionately facing this challenge. But from a 4-day week context, it also is counterproductive, because what we're doing is we're driving behavior towards constant connectivity and busyness. We're not actually driving behavior towards efficiency, because we are measuring the wrong things. Connectivity is not productivity and output. So if we can actually educate on this, give our leaders tools and data to be able to manage in a digital environment, then we can make a real difference. And we have to start with data. So I'll quickly share a little bit about what we do. So we provide data insights and behavior change training. And I want to couch this in one example from a client that we worked with to move to a shorter working week. So they were going into a shorter working week trial, and they were concerned, like many people are, that, is this just going to cause more stress? Are we just going to try and shove 5 days of work into 4? How can we actually do this well so that it's not causing stress? We're not losing productivity. So they did a lot of work in this area and decided to take a proactive approach. And together, what we did was interventions before, during, and after the pilot. So before the pilot, we ran 4 workshops all around digital productivity. And I'll go into a bit more detail as to what they were in there, but essentially helping to gain back time to make the pilot more of a success. During the pilot, they ran our digital culture diagnostic to be able to understand their people's experiences of work, and then be able to make changes during the pilot itself to make sure that they increase the chances of success. And then what happened was that after those workshops, 3 months later, 100% of people said productivity had improved, 98% said well-being had improved. So they got those productivity gains that they were looking for. They also had a successful pilot and transitioned to the shorter working week permanently. And then as they were looking at what they could do to improve, they people within the team were really calling out the value of these workshops and, kind of looking at more things they could do to improve ways of working. So what came out of the survey for them was meeting culture. So they put in place another 3-part series of workshops around meeting culture. And what we did together then was to reduce the amount of time and stress that was being caused by meetings. So just as a little intro as to what that looks like. So the digital productivity workshops, basically, the outcomes of them are reducing the number of emails that we're sending. So many of them are unnecessary, putting clear frameworks around how we communicate. I introduced, we have a framework which is called the 3 modes of work that talks about how you need different conditions for different types of work. So deep focus work, you need to have quiet, productive time where you're not being interrupted. So we looked at giving people those details so that then they could apply that and be more productive and be less distracted. So this, I think, able to make those instant improvements, and we paired it with really practical kind of work plans as well. Our diagnostic basically looks at a workplace's digital culture. It looks at people's experiences of digital work, maps them to the impact on KPIs, and shows you kind of insights such as whether people are feeling that pressure to be connected outside of work. But more importantly, it then links to who's feeling that pressure and what is the impact, so that you can then go and advocate for change. So those who feel that pressure to be connected outside of work, 19% more likely to leave, 70% more likely to be burnt out. So with data, you can target where you need to make the change and show why you need to make the change. And then finally, we looked at meetings. So as Ryan shared, well, I think Microsoft research shows that meetings are now the #1 barrier to productivity. So running these meeting workshops enabled people to be able to reduce unnecessary meetings and also change the way that people hold meetings when they do hold them, so that they are more effective and also they're less draining. So even simple things like, have you ever hidden self-view when you're on a video call or not? Hiding self-view is just one small step that will reduce the mental toll of meetings. And then finally, we've now put a lot of this wisdom into learning that can be licensed and that can be easily shared alongside some of these kind of wider initiatives too. So I think the key, as Ryan mentioned, is that we have to take a bespoke approach with each company. Everyone's got different challenges. Everyone's people are different, and the order of kind of going through change will be different. But the first thing that's important is gathering that data, understanding what your people's experiences are, and then looking at that data, decide what change you want to make. So if you want to talk about kind of any of these aspects with me, I've seen my LinkedIn has gone into chat, and you'd be very welcome to connect with me after this.
Alex, thank you so much. That was incredibly insightful. I think, the point that we're measuring the wrong things and connectivity is not that measure. I hurriedly had a look at what distractions I had open on the screen, and I promptly realized the phone was pinging and my WhatsApp was going. It's absolutely insane how we work. But I always say that when we're talking to clients about the 4-day week in particular, we say it's already there. It's just hidden under poor meeting culture and just the systems that don't support it, and expectations of that always on, and multiple distractions that come at us. So, I think one of the reasons why we really wanted you to be a part of this conversation is there are changes that you can make that are immediate, that will unlock immediate time efficiency and improve that well-being and sense of flourishing that employees have at work. So thank you so much. I know we've got a pretty strict time schedule, so hopefully you can stay on for some questions afterwards. I'm going to just reclaim host quickly. How do I do that again? I need to close my chat, I think, and then reclaim my host. There we go. There we go. Alex, thank you so much. Our next speaker I would like to introduce is Ali Khan from Shape Global. And as I said, we've been working with 40 Week South Africa Human Energy and 40 Week Global with Shape and bringing them in as a diagnostic and scientific partner to everything that we're doing, building the business case around time efficiency, employee flourishing, having very hard and difficult conversations around performance and productivity. So Ali, over to you. A warm welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. I think I need to make you host in order for you to share your slides.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try in the next 10 minutes to live up to everything Karen said, or even part of it. So I will try my best. Now, for those of you who know me, will know that I'm more a person who presents like Alex and Ryan, kind of a mix. So really, I ad-lib things. I don't really prepare. However, my team were adamant that we actually made an Oscar speech here, right? So I'm going to do my very best, and I'm probably going to share the wrong screen because I'm digitally challenged on Zoom. So if somebody can tell me that I've shared the right screen, and that I can read off comfortably. So all you're seeing
Looking
is
good.
my
Yes.
presentation. Okay, right. I will try my best to do justice. Shah, this is for you. Thank you very, very much for all of the help. Right, wonderful. Really, really good to be here today. So the subject actually overall is flourishing in time. And that's what I'm going to focus on, flourishing in time and productivity. But if we think about it, we're all here for a deeper reason that really binds us together. And that connection is stronger. And the reason I think is going to be much clearer as I move forward in this talk is why I've structured it the way I have today. So I want to cover 3 key points. I want to talk about the truth about the state of the world and how you can drive change. The truth about flourishing in time and productivity and Shape's role in that. And the truth about the future of work and again, what you can do. Now, you've noticed I've used the word truth a lot here. And I think the search for the truth is the common thread that brings this group of people together. So let's talk about the truth first. What are the principles of truth? And for starters, I really want to explain what I think it is in this quote here. You know, the interesting thing about the truth is that it sounds magical when you first hear it. But just like real magic, when you look under the hood, you feel rather silly. However, the problem is that most people actually don't want to look under the hood. And science is similar. For example, to the uninitiated, wireless was magical when it was first experienced. But the people who understood radio waves and spectrums, they weren't as surprised. Science makes things feel magical, yet when you break it down and you have that aha moment. However, then again, the problem is people aren't looking for aha moments beyond the odd TikTok here or there. So the truth is, everyone in the world who would, I think, is going to love the idea of getting time back to do things with their loved ones, time back to do things with activities they've always wanted to do for the longest time. So why aren't they flocking to things like the 4-day week? Why aren't they here today? It's because they're uninitiated. They think it's magical. They don't see the truth and the science behind it like we do. So that's our job. And so going back to that principle on the screen that you can see, first, we have to keep on speaking the truth together. Second, we have to meet people where they are. And I'm glad that you heard that from our other speaker friends here today. And we have to show them that this isn't a magic trick, that you can touch it, you can hold it, you can measure it. So that's what the truth is about. And if we do this well, it will become a no-brainer. Now let's talk about travel. So this is how we've sent people to the moon. A spacecraft. Actually, only 5 to 10% of it is actually called the spacecraft, or what we call the payload. The rest of it is a rocket. So 95% of the structure is singularly dedicated to helping the 5 or 10% get into space. And that's exactly what being a change maker is like. It takes an incredible amount of energy because you're literally going against the grain, like a spacecraft goes against gravity. People don't like to be told that they're wrong or that things could be better. And I love the fact that actually Ryan pulled it off incredibly well. The truth is, people don't actually really want to know that. We do it all day long, by the way. They want solutions, they want fast fixes. However, I think that's why we're here today. All of us have this bug in our brain that chimes with the truth. To the rest of the world, we all sound a bit crazy, but really we're trying to drive meaningful change in the world based on that very truth we know. So we have to work together. We have to combine our energy, and we have to amplify each other's voices. That's what it's going to take to change the world. So people like us, I think we're called change makers. I think you're called change makers. That's why you're here. To those of us who aren't familiar, this is Everett Rogers' 1962 diagram depicting the law of diffusion of innovation. And we've all heard about the early adopters, but that's right. Actually, before that, we're the ones on the left there. We're the innovators, we're the dreamers, we're the change makers. We're in the minority. And we've got to push this forward. We've got to push it for the world. We literally have to show them the truth no matter what it takes. So if we can speak the truth in a form that the world understands, it will increase their acceptance, it will increase the adoption, and that will help us become the change makers that we've all set out to be. So the people at 4-Day Week, for me, are prime examples of change makers. They're cut from the same cloth as these figures here, like Henry Ford, who coincidentally introduced the 5-day work week. And people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Marie Curie, and Anita Roddick, they've all done something profound in their own way. They contributed, but they all went against the conventional practices of the time. They fought for something different. They got a band of people together who were inspired by the same truth. So what's the truth we're gathered here for today? Well, it's something that has helped us develop an incredibly deep relationship at Shape with our friends at the 4-Day Week. And they're some of the few businesses in the world that I've ever encountered in 45 countries over 20 years that I've traveled. They're fighting against the poor practices of modern day workplaces. And they've discovered something that very few people in the world are talking about, and that's flourishing. So let's move on to the second point, and let's talk briefly about flourishing at Shape. First, what is flourishing? Well, we look at it through the lens of the workplace. It's literally the next generation enabler of everything that businesses have been seeking all along. Things like employee well-being, higher performance, lower retention, lower attrition, and a limit on absenteeism, improvements in personal growth, and many more of the things that you've heard about today as well. These are the business metrics that companies want to rely on. It's the truth that we found after 7 years of continuous research and development. And when we set out, we weren't even originally looking for flourishing, actually. We were mapping out the drivers of performance at work. But along the way, we discovered that flourishing and performance go hand in hand. And we knew immediately that this was a truth that we had to tell the world. So I'm so grateful to have found our friends at the 4-Day Week. They're on a similar journey as us. We're walking the same path. They want people to flourish in time, not only so they can spend less time at work, but really it's about spending their time more meaningfully. A natural consequence of that is being more productive and ultimately not needing to be at work 5 days a week. Now, let me very quickly tell you about the 5 key things about Shape, flourishing, and the link to time and productivity. So I hope you're getting your phones out, guys. So we're the employee flourishing company. But we're not the only ones talking about it. Flourishing's got a long history that goes back centuries, and that's what you can read about in a very short read. It's called The Book of Flourishing. If you snap that, you'll be able to put your details in, and by the time this session ends, you'll have it with you ready to read. Now, flourishing is also being studied by academics like Harvard and Oxford. So it's validated by some of the brightest minds of our times. And yes, we're part of the Flourishing at Work community of practice over at Harvard. We're working with a number of universities now to share our data so they can study much more than just time, but also productivity and performance metrics as well. But we didn't start with Harvard, we didn't start with the universities, but we connected with them because of the truth that flourishing binded us together. Our focus now is specifically on flourishing at work, while, for example, Harvard is focusing on whole of life, so it fits incredibly well. Secondly, it takes a lot of data points and a lot of rigorous statistical science to measure and drive flourishing in a business. We discovered that there's over 120 different drivers, and we've grouped them together in what we call the 12 explorers. Performance at work takes commitment, engagement, great colleagues, an outstanding culture, a great environment, and good health. Companies are measuring these in bit parts through organizations who run away with the data, and they're left with very little to try to infer what productivity and performance actually look like. It's not going to work that way. And a deficit in any of these areas that you're reading means an impact in your ability to reach your peak. And through these, we're able to measure the precise degree of flourishing, striving, and struggling per person, per team, and the whole business. And we've packaged all of this capability into a platform, a seamless experience that helps everybody in the business to flourish. Now, thirdly, I alluded earlier that flourishing in time isn't simply about taking a day off work. It's about something much, much deeper. It's about the conditions and the behaviors that we encounter every day at work and the impact that they have on the time we spend at work. Think about it for a second. We give a third of our lives to work, yet most of us don't fully enjoy enough of the time being spent there. So it's time that we look closely at the conditions and the behaviors that are getting in the way. Imagine a different world where they are correct. And what we'll find inevitably is that when people flourish in time, they're going to be able to do much more with a lot less. And that's a real and measurable impact that flourishing has on our time. The fourth thing I'll add is that flourishing in time is something that Shape measures, we report it, and we help companies acquire it. In fact, Dale, the CEO of the 4-Day Week, and I connected deeply over this algorithm here that you're seeing on screen that we developed. We call it time to gain. So if a Shape score of 0 is bad and 100 is great, each point, when converted into time, makes it so much more understandable. And those points we can tap into for improvement. Now, optimizing every facet of Shape will help employees get that time back. So we've made it as measurable as we can possibly make it using the science. And this is information that's backed by the national statistics of the governments in over 40 countries. So we can help, for example, an MNC organization understand this at multiple levels. And the last thing is, with all this in mind, the link between flourishing and time and productivity, they'll become much more concrete. So finally, I'm going to leave you with just a handful of things to think about. I want to talk about the truth again. What does the future look like? So if you add all of these things up, driving change, flourishing, and helping people to their fullest potential is the real goal. And being here today and listening to Ryan, to Alex, to Karen, it's reminded me that we're not all alone, but we all need to step up together. And the story that we're trying to tell is, I think, the story the world wants to hear. We just got to find a way to rise above the noise with the science, with each other. And the last slide, if you just look back, yes, change is hard. But it's possible to make flourishing quantifiable. And it's important that you start with your own people. Now, I know we've got a bit of time, and hopefully, sorry, I'm a little bit over, but I am more than happy to show you, if anybody's interested, how I'm flourishing, where I'm flourishing, live, if anybody wants to see it, more than happy to do that. Heck, I'll even show you how my company's flourishing, so you can see for yourself how we've turned a science into something far more practical. Karen, I'll hand back to you.
Ali, thank you so much. Flourishing in time is indeed quantifiable, and it's really, really exciting to be walking this journey with you and Global and 40 Week South Africa. I think having access to your system and the data points that you are currently tracking employee flourishing against is just one of the most exciting things that I've encountered in this 2-year journey that I've walked. To be able to run a diagnostic and really understand where everybody is down to the granular level of an individual employee and what its collective impact is on an organization is just incredibly powerful. So Ali, thank you. And I do hope we get some time for some demonstrations, and without a doubt, we will be booking demos with anyone in the audience that would like to have a demo from Shape. And just on that note, there are a handful of South African companies that are already part of the first Pioneer pilot. We've taken a look to see on the process of running the Shape surveys with some of the South African participants from the first pilot to indeed see what a flourishing organization looks like. So watch this space. We'll be coming back with some case studies and some more business cases for taking to the C-suite and your HR managers on how we can make businesses with a greater economic advantage. So time to gain time advantage and economic advantage. Thank you so much, Ali. I appreciate your time. Tamsin, I'm going to hand over to you. Let me just do your slide, please. I'm going to have to take my host back. Give me 1 second. Sorry, Ali, I'm reclaiming my host. Reclaimed for a second. And our next speaker is Tamsin Haley. She's co-founder with me in Human Energy and the Board of 40 Week South Africa. And as mentioned in the introduction, an author, founder of 2 other organizations, Social Happiness and Angel of Rock Productions, and talk to us today about human energy and capacity and flourishing in time. Tam, it's over to you.
Thank you very, very much. I just want to see if I've got host. Would you mind giving it to me? Thank you. I hope everyone's doing well and that you had some lunch just ahead of the session. But we'll be letting you loose again very, very soon. So that is all good. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, Karen. Thank you for the introduction, and to our other speakers. Thank you so much. I think you've absolutely beautifully queued me up to talk about what I want to talk about. So thank you very much for that. So firstly, human energy. I just want to touch on this because energy is the important word here. Energy is not something that can be destroyed. It is something that can be changed and developed and evolved. And that's why we're focusing on it in our business. We are an accredited 4-day week global consulting partner for Africa, and we're very excited to have that role. And when we're looking at flourishing in time, that becomes incredibly important. So firstly, what is flourishing in time? And I think a number of our speakers have touched on this today, but I just want to take it from where we see it. Firstly, it's creating a space where people can thrive, where you can grow, where you can develop, and where we can actually work on our own goals that we want to in our life in the different periods that we're in. I think one of my favorite sayings that I've ever heard is, you can have everything. You just can't have it all at the same time. And that's okay, so you can sort of space it out and work out when it's going to work for you. But to have space to actually be working towards your individual goals is so important for self-fulfillment. We also need space for rest, because rest develops creativity, problem solving. It gives our brain space to solve problems because we're not always on, as well as creating space where we can focus on our wellness in a way that makes sense to ourselves. Ryan was saying it, We all like different things. I hate jogging. You're never going to find me run. If I'm running, someone's chasing me. That's the only reason I'm running. But you will find me on a surfboard or kicking somebody at kickboxing. But again, that's not somebody else's thing. We need to be able to have space where we can do our own wellness in a way that makes sense to us, as well as connect with a sense of purpose. So you can often talk to people and they say, well, you know, I've got safety and security, I've got enough money, I've got people that I love and who love me, but I just don't have the sense of purpose. I'm not connected to something bigger. And it's generally because they don't have enough time in their life to figure out what it is that connects them to everybody else and how they can flourish in that space. So there are two main things that are really hurting the ability to flourish in time. And that is our always on and our hustle culture. So we are constantly connected to the world, and it is connected to us through all of our devices. And Alex is really a fantastic person to talk to if you're struggling with that or your team is struggling with that. Downtime is important. We need to disconnect so that we can really just be ourselves and you know, be able to tap back into the machine that we've created. And hustle culture is a big one as well. We've been told that you've just got to fake it till you make it. You've just got to do it, just push, just do it. And what we've created is a space where if we are not doing something, we feel useless. And we're seeing this particularly in the millennial generation, and Gen Z is picking up some serious habits of this as well. So our next two big driving workforces feel that if they're not on all the time, they're not contributing and they're useless. We don't want people feeling that way. So just to have a look at what this means in the greater context of things is that, you know, firstly, the pandemic did cause a serious stress point in our history, and it really rocketed anxiety and depression by a massive 25% globally in that time period, just the first year of it. Now we're almost 5 years later, but recent data from the National Geographic has reported in America only, right? Okay, so never mind the rest of the world, nearly a quarter of adults are struggling with these mental disorders. And that's a 19% increase from 2019, so pre-pandemic. This is astronomical. And these are just the reported numbers. Never mind the people who weren't asked to be part of these surveys, or the people who felt that they couldn't report accurately for whatever reason. So these numbers are actually higher in reality. We've got a problem that we're dealing with, and this is sapping that energy that we need to be able to flourish in any capacity. Now, why is this important for decision makers in business? I mean, we're talking about individuals, I'm talking about exercise routines, I'm talking about having a sense of purpose. But if we are not flourishing, we see this show up in the workforce in a number of different ways. We see lower confidence levels. Now, people who are less confident don't solve problems. They wait for other people to solve them for them. So we've got a workforce who's unable to actually problem solve and drive a business forward. We've got decreased engagement and loyalty. So they might be looking to jump ship or even sitting and quiet quitting in the office and not getting involved in projects that can help move the business forward. We can end up having very lackluster customer experience. So I've been mentioning things that affect the internal ecosystem of a business, but suddenly with customer service, we're talking about that exterior ecosystem. We're talking about reputational damage, and we're talking about a direct connection to your bottom line in a business being affected by how people are feeling and how well they can function. It also affects your business's ability to scale quickly. Now, if we look at something like a car and you're able to put in enough fuel to get you 100 kilometers further, but it actually could hold 1,000 kilometers worth of fuel, that's the amount of energy you have to use. And if you've got a depleted workforce that can only give you that 100, you're going to be stop starting the whole time, and that scalability goes out the window very quickly. Whereas if you're able to tap into a lot more energy, that happens more smoothly and seamlessly. And we see a decreased productivity happening where we can't even convince ourselves to get going on that to-do list, which impacts a team's ability to work together and how an enterprise actually ends up delivering their product or service to the end consumer at the end of the day. Never mind the high turnover rate in staff. Must be better on the other side. The corporate culture is actually just the problem. Whatever excuses people are saying to ourselves, really, we need to keep in mind that the competitive space is not necessarily better, but it feels better. And we just don't need to be training new people all the time either. We need to be finding correct fits and skills that we can maintain within the business so that we can actually thrive, strive, and grow. Never mind the negative health impacts, which make sure that we've got a very high usage of your sick leave, maybe extended leaves of absence as well. And burnout really is a huge risk in this day and age. So where do we need to start if we want to change this? it's with the individual, and Ali was tapping onto this with his talk as well. When we start looking for a solution to problems in business, when we're looking at human energy, we have to look at the individual first, because each of us rocks up every day with a different level of energy. Maybe I slept horribly last night. Maybe you slept brilliantly. Maybe somebody has small children. Maybe somebody has teenagers who, are coming in at the crack of dawn. Maybe somebody is single, living their best life, or single and, has a really good sleep routine and they're happy in what they're doing. We don't know. And that's the thing, is we each have this differing energy capability by just arriving at the office. So having a good understanding of what's happening in each individual's life, then see how it connects at a team level, and then how each team connects at a business level. Now, once we have this information, then we can start looking at interventions and changing it, because we know that how things are in the workforce right now is not fantastic, and we need to drive towards change. Now, one of the things we've been discussing a lot today, and is a good buzzword, is the 4-day week. It's a reduced work week. It doesn't mean it's a Friday off. It just means that people get 20% of their time back into their day. Now, if we're talking about flourishing in time, that sounds like the obvious answer. Well, giving you 20% of your contracted time back, you'll flourish, no problem. The problem is that if we're not even in the state to be able to really make that time allocation work for us, it's not going to change anything. So we do need to focus on wellness. We need to focus on team dynamics, as well as what's happening in a business's infrastructure, because all of these things impact how well we can flourish in our workspace and how productive we can actually be at the end of the day. So businesses should be looking, yes, at a reduced work week as one potential option, but seeing what other factors are happening in their workforce and where even sometimes small shifts and changes can happen. It might be communication in teams. It might be management styles. It might be how different departments are talking to each other. It could be archaic IT infrastructures that are making things harder to work. It could be a way of work, a lack of policies and procedures. But the beautiful thing is about having a diagnostic tool that can tell us where those pain points sit, aka our explorers. We can then see how we can drive bigger impact in businesses for each business, because every ecosystem is different and they each have different needs. So if we have a look at an intervention and what this can mean for a business, this is taking the 4-day week South Africa information from the pilot that was ran last year. And when we asked employees how well they were doing in the space, we got some really, really good feedback out of that trial. We have 58% of participants saying that their creativity increased, so they could solve more problems simply because they were on a 4-day work week. 49% of them said that their workability increased. So not only could they problem solve, but they could implement it as well. So that's huge for businesses. It means that we've got people who can think for themselves and are able to have the capacity to do that and make it happen. And we had a 57% decrease in burnout during the trial as well. So we had more people in office, whether that's remote or bums on seats, who were able to make sure that that work could happen. On an individual level, this is amazing and this is fantastic, but we're working with businesses. The change has to come within that ecosystem. So what does that look like for the business? Out of the trial, we saw 7.5 out of 10 rating for a productivity increase by business leaders. That's how they rated it, on how much better their teams were doing, which is phenomenal. And we got an average of 10.5% increase in revenue across the 28 trial participants. Now, that is a significant increase in years where we've got businesses reporting that they're really struggling to grow. We also got a 7.9 out of 10 rating for being able to attract new talent to companies, which is so important when we're looking in industries where there's a talent attrition or there's literally poaching of top talent from different companies. So it gives businesses a competitive advantage. And then on top of that, there was a 11% decrease in resignation rates. So we were keeping more of that workforce in the business rather than bleeding it out the whole time. Very important. And two things I want to say on this is, one, this is just a 4-day week intervention. Now imagine it with a wellness intervention. Imagine it with a better digital habits intervention. Imagine it with looking at what business structures could change the way that you do business. And this was also only over a 6-month period. There's a reason why such a high percentage of businesses who've stuck with the 4-day week program have continued to a year and beyond. It's because exponentially, these results start looking more and more positive. So at Human Energy, what does it look like we do? And just thank you to our SR speakers. I may have stolen your logos just to make a point, but these are all partners that work with Human Energy. And that's why I'm so glad to have been able to share the stage with them today. We start with a shape diagnostic because we need to know what's happening at an individual level, how that implements and impacts the teams that are involved in that, and then what that looks like for the entire organization. Human Energy takes those dashboards, we have a look at those pain points, we see what interventions could help that ecosystem, discuss it with the decision makers in the business, we de-risk it, we project manage, and we problem solve alongside them. And we pull in strong partners who are fantastic at what they do to help us drive change in those businesses. And of course, some of these partners are Jack and Live More Offline. So that's what we want to do, is we want to help businesses to human better, because when the human capital in a business is looked after properly, they have time to flourish, they're fulfilled individuals who can drive better productivity, and at the end of the day, profitability for businesses. But we've got an ecosystem that's feeding and looking after itself. Thank you very much for your time today. And Karen, I'm going to hand back over to you.
Thank you so much, Tam. Gosh, a lot to take in for the audience here. Some powerhouse speakers. From my side, an enormous thank you to all of you for taking the time out of your busy days to attend this virtual event, and to our speakers for your wisdom and your contribution. I think just before we open the floor for questions for the last 9 minutes, a couple of takeouts that I have from Ryan is really engage earlier with well-being. And please let me know if you guys agree with me. These were just a few things that I took out. Treat well-being as a science and a discipline. And we're hearing that word a lot. That's science, that's diagnostics. For me, a second takeout was collect the data to target individuals where and where you need to make, where and why you need to make that change. So really, those digital distractions that we're faced with, the poor meeting management, your digital culture, and the adverse effect on well-being. Explore ways as organizations where you can enable your staff, to find their way back to flourishing. And then from Ali, really exploring the science and drivers of employee flourishing, what they are. We didn't even get to touch on those 12 explorers. They are absolutely incredible when you deep dive into them and you understand what the power of that diagnostic is. But I think for me, Ali, a takeout from you is really organizations being enabled or creating the conditions that enable optimal work performance, fulfillment, and growth. And Tam, we've spoken about this over and over again, the seesaw of human energy. The different life stages, the different day-to-day experiences that we have, our capacity, the ebb and flow of that energy. And we have to manage it as individuals, as managers, as employers. And I think the final takeout here is nobody in this room is not a change maker, is not a visionary, is not a thought leader. Like, find like. And I've had the incredible privilege of meeting some like-minded people over the year, and we're all trying to fight for the same thing. And that is to see our workforce is starting to be better, more flourishing. We're not spending 40 billion pounds a year, or was it dollars, on well-being that is not working. So where are we going to start? How are we going to start? And I think, so before I hand over to the floor, really is 4-day week is one of the interventions. And Tam, that was a very important point. Please, it is a change management program. It is not an undertaking that a business should just, let's do the 4-day week. It is not about that. It is about planning to transition. It is about looking for the inefficiencies. It is about planning towards that economic advantage and making the business case for business leaders to be able to find it appetizing. The idea of staff taking a Friday off and just disappearing is beyond the comprehension of a lot of C-suite, and even the HR directors have a difficult time bringing the 4-day week to the fore. So start with the science, start with the data, diagnose what shape you're in, diagnose what is going on, use science to unlock, ask the right questions, and measure what matters. So from me as MC and 4-day week South Africa, thank you to the speakers, and I'm going to stop talking for good now and hand back over to this wonderful audience to ask questions that I'm sure you all want to ask. So if you want to raise your hand, I'll call you up one at a time. Cameras on, please. Any questions? All right,
Karen,
Ali,
maybe
I've got one for you. How long does it take to complete a 125 question survey across 12 explorers?
with incredibly finessed user experience design, CX design, high cadence testing, it takes all of about 23 minutes on average.
I hope you've all heard that. That's
I
time
can confirm
efficiency at the
that.
next level. So Tamsin as Social Happiness actually did it as well, did the SHAPE survey. We as 4 Day Week Global as an organization have also taken the SHAPE survey, and I must admit has informed a good deal of how we behave and the choices that we're making, both as individuals, managers, and as an organization as a whole. So we're really looking forward to being able to invite you all to some demos. Tanya, you've got your hand up.
Hi there. Thank you. Yes, I am. I have had my hand up. This is quite a lot to take in, and it's my first 4 day into this 4 day week. So thank you very much for having me. I haven't said much because I don't know much about the 4 day week. From Port Elizabeth, the GQ as we are now called. And the traditional working culture here is as like 24/7. If you're not available, then you're shirking off kind of thing. At my organization, I try to measure deliverables rather than, all the micromanagement aspects of whether you were 2 minutes late today and that kind of thing. Have you delivered, So I can resonate. A lot of what you're saying is resonating with me. But my big question is, we are a small organization. I have 20 employees, Everybody needs to be on board. We don't work in silos. We work together as a team to get things done. How does this transition into small businesses? How do I make the 4 day comfortable for everybody without, as well as changing this traditional mindset, that people have about how work should be done?
Tanya, so I can give you an answer. We're a small business at my digital marketing agency, and we transitioned last year. I think one of the biggest concerns is how will other people perceive it. So I think especially with that always on culture that you're talking about in GQ, that's so important. So what we did is we firstly made sure that we had people in each function who would always be on. So the business is always operational. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, the business is open for business. And our clients can reach out to us at any point in time. And that was an interesting experiment to go and do. Like, do we have a double up of every skill that we need? And if we didn't, we needed to look at hiring or do some training so that we had that flexibility available. And it's worked really, really well. So how our structure works, and this is also the beautiful thing about a 4-day week, is you get to decide what works for your business. Your team gets to give you input into what would work for them. But we work 4 days on, you have 4 days off. So it's a 4-day weekend. That's a Friday to a Monday. Work another 4 days and then have a 2-day weekend. And that's worked really well for our team for over a year now. There have been times where we've needed to adjust and shift and change, but we do it as a team with feedback. And the other thing I really want to say on this is not everybody was on board when I first said it. I mean, I came in as a cheerleader and was like, we're doing this. And I maybe had 50% of the team, 100% on board. We had some of the team who were going, there's no ways this is going to work. And at the end of the trial, which is 6 months, what I loved about that is that the team members who were like, I was terrified of this, it wasn't going to work, were the first people to go, I was wrong, this is amazing, can we please keep doing this? Because that was the thing. At the end of 6 months, we went, is this working? Are we continuing? And we got a unanimous yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
Pleasure.
Tanya, one more observation on that is the 4-day week mandates one thing, and that's bottom up. So the entire process of transitioning to a 4-day week is one of consultation, 2, experimentation, and 3, iteration. So it is not something that you switch on. It is something that you plan for and transition towards. And there is not a silver bullet. There is not a one size fits all. And every organization has to figure out what is right for their team, what is right for the business. So it doesn't look like a Friday off. In fact, South African, the pilot companies in the first Pioneer pilot did things completely differently in the way that they took that 20% reduction in the work week. So there are many, many ways that you can skin that cat. It really is about figuring out what the business outcomes are, what productivity and performance levels are not negotiable, and then asking yourself and the staff, the question, under what circumstances can we hold this performance and this level of output without changing pay, but reducing the average work week by 20%? And in asking that question, you're putting the problem-solving cap on. So it's a consultative bottom-up approach, as it should be with any change management program. But I think the step and what I wish I had had when I first started was the data as the starting point. Because very often some departments, and yes, your business is smaller than others, but some departments are at a higher level of risk in moving or transitioning to a 4-day week than others. And what the data gives us when we do a SHAPE survey, for example, is we can see exactly what is happening at an individual employee level, at a team or department level, right up to the executive view. So getting the report and the data and understanding what exactly is going on. Are you struggling? Are you striving? Are you flourishing? And, you know, are there variances in different departments? That is where you start. So you de-risk that transition. So, you know, for example, we were talking to a large online financial institution the other day, and they're, you know, 4,000 employees. And there are a couple of the departments that are very ready and capable at head office to transition. They're ready. They can go. They've got it all figured out. They're socialized. They understand it. They're mostly knowledge workers. The minute we went into the discussion went into the branch level environment. So head office was taken care of, but what about the retail staff? Well, then there's an entirely different conversation taking place because we're dealing with shifts and we're dealing with changing, you know, minds and also, you know, there's, I call it the you know, the MI6 sort of factor. You know, these C-suiters that sit there and believe that a person is at their desk and therefore busy. That is just, that's not what, those kind of leaders are not going to be open to trying reduced hours working. Diana, Ali, I think you want to step in there. Go, you need to go.
I've got to run away, but Tanya, my contribution here, just to give you a little bit of confidence here. Invention comes from the mother of need, and you will continue to do the things the way you only know how. That's a 5-day week. It might be a 6-day week, perhaps as well. And data will give you the confidence. More of it will give you even more confidence because now you know where the levers are going to be that you need to pull. But the most important piece is you'll be able to switch over only with confidence. Confidence comes from the data. The data will give you the guidance. So it's about getting the cycle right and making sure that you're using the right data as well in the right way. And the team have really, we've been working very hard behind the scenes, not to just throw data at you, but to give you the support as you take the journey as well. That's another really important thing. One thing, just last thing I've learned is we provide a lot of data and we provide a lot of reporting, and it sometimes can be very overwhelming. What we've learned is that all of the AI in the world isn't going to work unless you get the HI in there. You're going to need the human support throughout. And that's what the 4-day week have been really, really, you know, I've been super impressed with. I've got to leave everybody, but a warm invitation from me for anybody who wishes to see SHAPE in action, more than happy to do so. And thank you so much for having me as well. Really such a pleasure.
Ali, thank you for joining us. Really, it meant a lot for you to be able to give us your time today. We appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. See you.
Anyone else that needs to drop off, please, you're welcome to. Alex, a huge thank you from our side as well for joining us today. I think we need a session just on digital habits and well-being. It's so much to explore. But again, we invite you to please reach out to Alex or to us, and we will connect you with Alex. There's a lot of work that we're going to be doing, hopefully very soon, with all of the partners that we've introduced today. So on that note, I think if there are no further questions, then we will close. We're 4 minutes over, but thank you everybody that attended today, and we look forward to seeing you very, very soon again.